Welcome to the demonstration of the DeviceLock Endpoint DLP suite, a software product by a worldwide leader in data leak prevention. The DeviceLock Endpoint DLP suite is easy to install. Administrators can have instant access from remote computers when necessary. The administrator of the machine or domain can designate user access to floppy and optical drives, other removable media, tape drives, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth adapters, USB, FireWire, infrared, serial and parallel ports, hard drives, printers, Palm and Windows mobile PDAs, iPhones, iPods and iPads, Blackberries, terminal sessions, and clipboard. DeviceLock can detect disks encrypted by third-party products and apply special or encrypted permissions to them. DeviceLock comes with Network Lock and Content Lock, separated licensed components that provide additional functionality for DeviceLock. These components are installed automatically, but require a license to function. Network Lock adds comprehensive context control capabilities over endpoint network communications. It supports port-independent network protocol and application detection and selective blocking, message and session reconstruction with file, data, and parameter extraction, as well as event logging and data shadowing. Administrators can designate user access to the FTP, HTTP, SMTP, MAPI, SMB, and Telnet protocols, instant messengers, including Skype, cloud storages, webmail, and social networking applications. Content Lock is a content monitoring and filtering component that greatly enhances the capabilities of the Content-Aware Rules feature. With Content Lock, not only can you grant or deny access to information based on real file types, but also create regular expressions patterns with numerical conditions and Boolean combinations of matching criteria and keywords. Recognizing more than 80 file formats and data types, Content Lock extracts and filters the content of data copied to removable drives and plug-and-play storage devices, as well as that transmitted over the network. With Content Lock, you can also filter shadowed data down to just those pieces of information meaningful to security auditing, incident investigations, and forensic analysis before saving in the shadow log. This tremendously reduces storage space and network bandwidth requirements for shadow log delivery to the central database. DeviceLock can audit user activity for a particular device type or protocol. Based on the user security context, this capability allows you to audit activities that belong to a certain user or a user group. DeviceLock employs the standard event logging subsystem and writes audit records to the Windows event log, as well as to the centralized SQL database. DeviceLock supports data shadowing, which is the ability to mirror all data copied to external storage devices, transmitted over the network, or transferred through serial and parallel ports. A full copy of the files can be saved into the SQL database. Shadowing, like auditing, can be defined on a per-user basis. The data logged by DeviceLock can be checked against hash databases and used in computer forensics. You may also create your own database of critical files and then use it for tracing purposes. DeviceLock can generate real-time security alerts when significant incidents, events, or problems occur. Real-time alerting simplifies event monitoring and log management and helps you respond faster and more efficiently to security incidents and policy violations. Also, you can enable auditing, shadowing, and alert rules for files and other objects, contacts, emails, etc., copied from a PC to a device. DeviceLock provides instant searching of text across shadowed files and audit logs stored in the centralized database. DeviceLock can automatically recognize, index, search, and display documents in many formats. DeviceLock can monitor remote computers in real time, checking DeviceLock service status, policy consistency, and integrity. Also, it is possible to define a master policy that can be automatically applied across selected remote computers in the event that their current policies are suspected to be out of date or damaged. DeviceLock supports granular access control, auditing, and shadowing for Windows Mobile and Palm devices, as well as for iPods and iPhones. You can set permissions for different objects, like files, contacts, emails, and so on, transferred from or to these devices. Also, you can enable auditing, shadowing, and alert rules for files and other objects copied from a PC to a device. All connection interfaces are supported. Integration into Active Directory eliminates the need to install more third-party applications for centralized management and deployment. DeviceLock does not need to have its own server-based version to control the entire network. Instead, it uses standard functions provided by Active Directory. Tighter integration into the Active Directory is a very important function of DeviceLock. It makes DeviceLock's permissions management and deployment easier for large networks and more convenient for system administrators. DeviceLock prevents hardware keyloggers from recording keystrokes. It detects USB keyloggers and blocks keyboards connected to them. Also, DeviceLock service can block PS2 keyloggers. DeviceLock protects itself with DeviceLock Administrator's functionality, allowing access to DeviceLock components and related system data to authorized users only. You must have special privileges to install, control, and uninstall DeviceLock. Unauthorized users, even those with local administrative privileges, cannot control, disable, or uninstall DeviceLock. DeviceLock provides greater protection of sensitive corporate information in disconnected environments. Now you can control user access to devices and shadow copying of the data written by a user in different offline scenarios. DeviceLock offers even more management flexibility as you can define different online versus offline security policies for the same user or set of users. DeviceLock lets you create reports using data from logs stored on DeviceLock Enterprise Server. Use reports to arrange and display statistical data on a user's device-related and protocol-related activities in a separate file. DeviceLock works on any computer with Windows NT 4, Windows 2000, Windows XP, Windows Server 2003, 2008, and 2012, Windows Vista, Windows 7, or Windows 8 operating system installed. It supports both 32 and 64-bit versions of the operating system. DeviceLock consists of three parts: the agent, DeviceLock Service; the server, DeviceLock Enterprise Server or DeviceLock Content Security Server; and a management console, DeviceLock Management Console, DeviceLock Group Policy Manager, and DeviceLock Enterprise Manager. DeviceLock Service is the core of DeviceLock. DeviceLock Service is installed on each client system, runs automatically, and provides device and network protection on the client machine while remaining invisible to that computer's local users. DeviceLock Enterprise Server is the optional component for centralized collection and storage of the shadow data and audit logs. DeviceLock Enterprise Server uses MS SQL Server to store its data. You can install several DeviceLock Enterprise servers to uniformly spread the network load. DeviceLock Content Security Server is another optional component which includes Search Server for instant search of text within shadowed files and other logs stored on DeviceLock Enterprise Server. A management console is the control interface that system administrators use to remotely manage each system that has DeviceLock Service installed. DeviceLock is shipped with 3 different management consoles. DeviceLock Management Console is the snap-in for Microsoft Management Console. It is a universal tool allowing to view and change permissions and audit rules, install and update DeviceLock service, as well as view audit records for individual computers. Also, DeviceLock Management Console is used for viewing logs stored on DeviceLock Enterprise Server and for managing the server. DeviceLock Enterprise Manager. This console can be used to control many computers simultaneously and is recommended to be used in networks without Active Directory. DeviceLock Group Policy Manager is a console that integrates into the standard Windows Group Policy Editor. With this console, permissions and settings are implemented via group policy in an Active Directory domain. In addition to the above-mentioned components, DeviceLock provides an administrator with the tools designed to perform some specific functionality-related tasks. These are DeviceLock Service Settings Editor, used for creating and modifying external XML files, with settings, permissions, auditing, shadowing, and alerts rules for DeviceLock Service. DeviceLock signing tool, used to grant users temporary access to requested devices and sign XML files containing DeviceLock service settings, either exported from management consoles or created using DeviceLock Service Settings Editor. DeviceLock certificate generation tool, used to generate cryptographic certificates. The DeviceLock applet is a Windows Control Panel applet that users should use to obtain temporary access to devices and load signed XML files containing DeviceLock service settings. DeviceLock Web Console provides a simple and intuitive web interface for DeviceLock Management Console and DeviceLock Service Settings Editor, allowing you to access and use DeviceLock from any supported web browser. There are different ways to install DeviceLock service to local and remote computers to get them controlled with DeviceLock. Run the installer and follow the instructions. On this page, you can specify for whom desktop shortcuts to DeviceLock consoles and tools will be created. On the Setup Type page, select the components you need. Further installation process depends on the selection you made. If selected, DeviceLock service gets installed locally during the interactive installation, but there are other methods. Unattended installation. This provides an installation method that can be used from within a batch file. To install DeviceLock service without user intervention, run setup with the \s parameter. There is a special configuration file for silent setup named DeviceLock.ini. The DeviceLock.ini file must be located in the same directory as setup.exe. With this file, you can customize the installation parameters. Installation via Microsoft Systems Management Server allows you to deploy DeviceLock service using Microsoft Systems Management Server. Use the package definition file supplied with DeviceLock, located in the sms.zip file. DeviceLock Management Console supports remote installation to help system administrators set up a service on remote machines without ever having to physically go to them. When you're trying to connect to a computer where DeviceLock service is not installed or is outdated, the Management Console suggests that you install or update it. DeviceLock Enterprise Manager contains the Install Service plugin that allows you to deploy DeviceLock service automatically on all the selected computers in your network. First, select computers where DeviceLock service must be installed. DeviceLock Enterprise Manager allows you to select computers by their types and names. You can also load the computers list from an external file or select them from any LDAP tree like Active Directory, Novell eDirectory, Open LDAP, and so on. Then, select the Install Service plugin and press the Settings button to locate the directory that contains all of the service executable files needed for installation. You can also instruct DeviceLock service to use a fixed TCP port for the communication with management consoles. To use dynamic ports for the RPC communication, select the Dynamic Ports option. Once you have set the parameters, press Scan to install DeviceLock service to remote computers. DeviceLock service can be distributed to client computers in an Active Directory domain using the Microsoft Software Installer package. You can use group policy to distribute DeviceLock service, progressing through the following steps. Create a distribution point. Log on to the server computer as an administrator. Create a shared network folder to place the MSI package to. Set permissions on the share to allow access to the distribution package. Copy the MSI package to the distribution point. Create a group policy object. Start the Active Directory users and computers snap-in. In the console tree, select your domain. Type the name you want this policy to be called, and then press Enter. Set the Deny flag for the security groups that you want to prevent from having this policy applied. Set the Allow flag for the groups the policy applies to. When you are finished, click OK. To assign DeviceLock service, open the group policy object you need in the Windows Group Policy Object Editor. Under Computer Configuration, expand Software Settings. Right-click Software Installation, point to New, and then click Package. In the Open dialog box, type the full UNC path to the shared folder that contains the DeviceLock Service MSI package. Click Open, click Assigned, and then click OK. The package is now listed in the right pane of the Group Policy window. Close the Windows Group Policy Object Editor. When the client computer starts, DeviceLock Service is automatically installed. To install DeviceLock Enterprise Server, run Setup and follow the instructions that appear on the screen. You must run Setup on each computer targeted for DeviceLock Enterprise Server installation. In the DeviceLock Enterprise Server installation section of the wizard, you can opt to install DeviceLock Enterprise Server's service and define its startup parameters. First of all, you should choose an account starting the DeviceLock Enterprise Server service. You can instruct DeviceLock Enterprise Server to use a fixed TCP port for communication with the management console, making it easier to configure a firewall. Type the port number in Fixed TCP port. To use dynamic ports for RPC communication, select the Dynamic Ports option. If all the service's startup parameters were specified correctly, the wizard starts DeviceLock Enterprise Server. Here, you can define the list of users that have the administrative access to DeviceLock Enterprise Server and install the private key of DeviceLock certificate. If you have purchased a license for DeviceLock, you should load this license into DeviceLock Enterprise Server. Then, configure database parameters. You must specify the name of the database in SQL Server that will be used to store the DeviceLock Enterprise Server data. There are two ways to define a connection to SQL Server: ODBC driver and System Data Source. Select the Windows Authentication option to log in to the SQL Server with the account used to run DeviceLock Enterprise Server service. Select the SQL Server Authentication option to allow SQL Server to perform the authentication itself by checking the login and password previously defined. When connection to SQL Server is defined, you may want to test it. Press the Test Connection button to make sure that all the parameters were specified correctly. There are two modes of storing binary data. Data can be stored in SQL Server or it can be stored on a disk. When stored on a disk, data files are located by the path specified in the Store Path parameter. To choose the folder where files should be stored, use the Browse button. Press the Next button to apply changes and finish the installation of DeviceLock Enterprise Server. DeviceLock Content Security Server is an optional component of DeviceLock. It includes Search Server, which provides full-text searching of log data stored on DeviceLock Enterprise Server. To start the installation, open the DeviceLock zip file and start the setup program. Follow the instructions in the setup program. On this page, read the license agreement to accept and proceed with the installation. Here, you can either accept the default installation location or modify the path as needed. Click Next. The DeviceLock Content Security Server wizard starts. The wizard will guide you through the required settings you must configure to use Server. On this page, you configure startup options for the DeviceLock Content Security Server service. First of all, you should choose an account under which the server service will start. To start the service on behalf of the user, select this account option. Enter the user's account name and the password. Otherwise, you will need to use DeviceLock Certificate Authentication. You can instruct DeviceLock Content Security Server to use a fixed TCP port for communication with the management console. Click Next to start the DeviceLock Content Security Server service and to proceed to the second page. On this page, you define the list of users that have administrative access to the server and install DeviceLock Certificate. To define which actions are to be allowed for a user or user group, Set the appropriate rights. Full access. Users can change settings and run search queries. Change. Users can change settings, install or uninstall DeviceLock Content Security Server, and run search queries, but they cannot add new users to the list of authorized accounts that can connect to the server, or change access rights for existing users in the list. Read only. Users can run search queries and view settings, but cannot modify anything or create a new index for search server. You may need to deploy the private key to DeviceLock Content Security Server if you want to enable authentication based on DeviceLock Certificate. To install DeviceLock Certificate, select the file with the private key. To remove the certificate, click Remove. The final page of the wizard looks like this. If you have purchased a license for Search Server, you should load this license into DeviceLock Content Security Server. To install DeviceLock Web Console, run Setup and follow the instructions that appear on the screen. On this page, configure the web server. Port specifies the port on which the web server listens for HTTP requests from the web browser. This option enables SSL security on the web server. Specify the port on which the web server listens for HTTPS requests from the web browser, and the server's host name. Select the SSL key file and the SSL certificate file. DeviceLock user-level access permissions can be set using any of the product's management consoles. There are two types of access permissions: permissions for devices and permissions for protocols. There is a list of interfaces, device, and storage types for which you can define user-level permissions. To set permissions for a device type, go to the appropriate dialog box. The names of the users and user groups assigned to a device type are shown in the list of accounts on the top left-hand side of the Permissions dialog. To add a new user or a user group to the list of accounts, click on the Add button. You can add several accounts simultaneously. To define which actions on devices are to be allowed for a user or a user group, set the appropriate rights. All rights are divided into three groups: generic, encrypted, and special permissions. Each group has its own sets of rights. Generic rights do not apply to devices that are recognized by DeviceLock service as encrypted devices. Encrypted rights only apply to devices that are recognized by DeviceLock service as encrypted. Special permissions only apply to the Windows Mobile device type, Palm, iPhone device types, and Clipboard. There is a list of additional security parameters that affect permissions and audit rules for some device or storage types. These are security settings. These security parameters enable you to keep some device or storage types completely locked, but allow use of certain classes. For example, you can disallow using all USB devices except any mouse or keyboard device that connects through the USB port. It is possible to define security settings for the following device or storage types: clipboard, optical drive, firewire, printer, serial port, terminal session devices, USB port. Protocols Permissions Settings window is located in DeviceLock Service, Protocols, Permissions branch. There is a list of protocols for which you can define user-level permissions. Access permissions for protocols are set the same way as the permissions for devices. You can define the additional security parameter that affect permissions and audit rules for protocols. Block unrecognized outgoing SSL traffic, if enabled, allows DeviceLock service to audit and block all unrecognized outgoing SSL traffic. Otherwise, even if the protocols are locked, all unrecognized outgoing SSL traffic is not blocked, and audit is not performed for it. Block IP addresses and URL, if enabled, allows DeviceLock service to block all URLs containing the host IP address when users have allow access permissions for a protocol. This setting applies to the following protocols: HTTP, social networks, and webmail. Block proxy traffic, if enabled, allows DeviceLock service to audit and block all traffic that flows through a proxy server. The IP firewall lets you control network traffic that is not controlled by NetworkLock's list of managed protocols and is not allowed by the protocol's whitelist. You can configure and use the firewall to track TCP and UDP packets, allowing only authorized traffic. To define a firewall rule, right-click Basic IP Firewall and then click Manage. Select users or groups for this rule to apply to. Specify the firewall rule parameters. Type a name. Select a protocol. Specify what actions the firewall takes for all connections that match the rule's criteria. Specify the direction of traffic to which the rule applies. Specify the additional actions to be performed when the rule triggers. Specify the remote hosts to which the rule applies. Specify the ports on remote hosts to which the rule applies. A rule can be edited, copied, exported, or imported, undefined in order not to be applied to a specific group of client computers, and deleted. DeviceLock Enterprise Manager is a plugin-based console. It uses a special Set Service Settings plugin for the purpose of setting permissions. To use the plugin, you should select computers you would like to set permissions for, then select and double-click Set Service Settings plugin. If there are no files in the list, then you can either create an empty file by pressing New button or add an existing file by pressing Add button. Then highlight the file in the list and press Edit button to open DeviceLock Service Settings Editor. There is almost no difference between defining policies via DeviceLock Management Console and DeviceLock Service Settings Editor. DeviceLock Group Policy Manager Permissions Settings dialog is similar to that of other DeviceLock management consoles. DeviceLock allows you to define different online versus offline security policies for the same user or set of users. A user's online policies are applied when connected to the corporate network, specified DeviceLock enterprise servers, or Active Directory domain controllers. Offline policies are applied when the user is working disconnected. You can use different regular versus offline profiles for permissions, auditing, shadowing rules and alerts, USB devices whitelist, media whitelist, protocols whitelist, content-aware rules, and security settings. You can manage offline profile settings using DeviceLock Management Console, DeviceLock Service Settings Editor, or DeviceLock Group Policy Manager. You can define the network characteristics that DeviceLock uses to detect its connection state. To configure offline mode detection settings, select Service Options. Right-click Offline Mode Detection and then click Properties. Click any of the following options. Click OK. You can manage offline security policies in much the same way as you manage online policies. Generally, Whitelist is an option, allowing an administrator to authorize only specific devices, media, or protocols that will not be locked regardless of any other settings. The intention here is to allow special devices, protocols, and media content. There are 4 types of whitelists available. USB whitelist applies to USB port settings on permanent basis. To add a device to the USB devices whitelist, add a device to USB devices database first, making it available to be added to whitelist. There are two ways to identify devices in USB whitelist: by device model, which represents all devices of the same model, and by unique device, which represents a singular device unit. The next step is to authorize a device via USB whitelist. To do this, select a user whitelist to be applied to, and add the device to USB whitelist. Media whitelist is the functionality that allows you to uniquely identify a specific optical disc by data signature and authorize read access to it, even when DeviceLock service has otherwise blocked optical drives. To authorize media, add the media to the media database, making it available for adding to whitelist. Specify a user or user group the optical disc is to be whitelisted for. Add the media to the whitelist for the specified user group. In effect, this designates the media as authorized and allows it for this user or user group. Protocols whitelist lets you selectively allow network communication over any supported protocol, regardless of existing protocol blocking settings. The following steps are required to create and apply a protocol's whitelist rule. Specify a user or user group the rule is to be applied to. Create the rule. Specify general and protocol-specific parameters for this rule. To specify the protocol, click the protocol of your choice. To specify the rule name, in the description box, type a name. Specify protocol-specific parameters. Finish creating the rule. Click OK or Apply to apply the rule. You can modify parameter values specified for a whitelist rule anytime you want. You can perform a cut and paste operation, a copy and paste operation, or a drag and drop operation to reuse existing rules of the protocol's whitelist. You can export all your current rules of the protocol's whitelist to a PWL file that you can import and use on another computer. Exporting and importing can also be used as a form of backup. Protocol's whitelist rules can be undefined when you need to prevent them from being applied to a specific group of client computers, or deleted when they are no longer required. Temporary whitelist is the functionality that enables granting of temporary access to USB devices when there is no network. Temporary whitelist works like USB devices whitelist, with the distinction that a network connection is not required to add devices and grant access to them. To use the temporary whitelist functionality, the following steps should be taken. Run DeviceLock certificate generation tool and generate two keys, public and private, which are to be saved in your DeviceLock installation folder. Then, connect to the computer where temporary device access is to be granted, choose service options, and provide the computer with the public key. A user who you would like to grant access to a particular device should open the control panel, run DeviceLock applet and select the temporary whitelist authorization tool option, plug and select his device, provide an administrator with the generated information regarding certificate and device code. After getting the information from the user, an administrator runs DeviceLock signing tool and opens the device code tab. Then he selects the appropriate private key, enters the device code sent by the user, selects the time access is granted for, generates unlock code, sends the generated code back to the user. All the user has to do is to enter the unlock code provided by the administrator and press the Finish button to get his device unlocked. Content-aware rules are created based on the content groups that enable you to centrally define types of content for which you want to control access. Content groups specify content filtering criteria that will be used to select data to which rules should be applied. The same content database is used for both devices and protocols. All content groups are stored in the content database. There are several types of content groups. File type detection groups are used to control access to files based on file types. These groups contain definitions of the file types that make up these groups. Keywords groups are used to control access to data or files based on specified keywords or phrases. Pattern groups let you control access to text files or data using patterns of text described by Perl regular expressions. Document properties groups are used to control access to files based on file properties such as file name, size, etc. You can also use a document properties content group to control access to password-protected documents and archives, as well as text images. Oracle IRM groups are used to control access to documents that have been sealed using Oracle Information Rights Management, IRM. By defining rules based on Oracle IRM groups, you can selectively allow or deny access to IRM-protected documents, depending on the contexts that these documents are sealed to. Complex groups use Boolean expressions to select data or documents for which you want to control access. These groups can include any combination of built-in or custom content linked with any number of the standard logical operators. Each content group is treated as a single filter criterion that can be included in your Boolean expression. By using multiple content groups, you can create complex filters to identify sensitive content of data contained in documents or transmitted over the network. You can use the built-in content groups or create your own. To create your own group, click Add Group, specify its name, add the file or data types belonging to the group. Click OK. To define a content-aware rule, add a user group to be affected by a newly created rule. Select the desired content group and click Add. Type in the name of the rule. Specify the type of operation associated with the rule, permissions, shadowing, or both. Specify additional actions to be performed when the rule triggers. Then select the appropriate device types or protocols you would like the content-aware rule to be applied to. Once done, specify which user actions are allowed or disallowed on files or data transmitted over the network, and which user actions are logged to the shadow log. Click OK. Now the created rule is displayed here. Click OK or Apply to apply the rule. The users or groups to which the content-aware rule applies are displayed under Content-Aware Rules in the console tree. When you select a user or group to which a content-aware rule applies in the console tree, in the Details pane, you can view detailed information regarding this rule. To edit a content-aware rule, use the Edit Rule dialog box, modifying the rule properties to fit your needs. When finished, click OK to apply the changes. You can perform a copy-paste operation to reuse existing content-aware rules. To copy a content-aware rule, right-click the rule you want to copy, and then click Copy or Cut. Select a new user or user group to paste the copied rule. Paste it. Click OK or Apply to apply the copied rule. To export content-aware rules, expand content-aware rules. Right-click any user or group to which the rule is applied, and then click Save. When you export rules, they are saved in a file with a .cwl extension. To import content-aware rules, use Load to select a previously saved .cwl file. You can import only one file at a time. To undefine content-aware rules, use Undefine. To delete one, use Delete. DeviceLock Server must be configured correctly to use the shadowing option as well as to gather audit logs from client computers. Once you have started DeviceLock Enterprise Server service, you must specify the name of the database in the SQL server that will be used to store the DeviceLock Enterprise Server data. You will also have to define the connection type either ODBC driver, which allows you to enter the name of SQL Server in SQL Server name field and select the authentication mode, Windows or SQL Server, or System Data Source, when you select a predefined system data source from the data source name list. When connection to SQL Server is defined, you may want to test it. Press Test Connection to make sure that all the parameters were specified correctly. There are two modes of storing binary data. Data can be stored in SQL Server or it can be stored on a disk. To store data in SQL Server, check Store Shadow Files in SQL Server checkbox. To store data on a disk, uncheck the flag. In this case only, links to the binary data and some additional information are stored in SQL Server. When stored on the disk, data files are located by the path specified in Store Path parameter. To select a folder where files should be stored, use the Browse button. Use Stream Compression parameter to instruct DeviceLock to compress audit logs and shadow data sent from DeviceLock Services to DeviceLock Enterprise Server. It decreases the size of data transfers and thus reduces the network load. Enable the Unpack ISO Images parameter to extract files from shadowed CD, DVD, or Blu-ray images. Otherwise, whole shadowed image is stored in the database. It is necessary to configure auditing, shadowing, and alerts on client computers to get it all functioning. Here are the parameters allowing you to tune up auditing and shadowing for DeviceLock service. Use this parameter to define where on the local disk cached audit or shadowing data, data for content analysis, and the alert queue is stored. You can specify the time threshold in seconds used for consolidation of repetitive events associated with file operations. Enable this parameter to allow automatic cleanup of the locally stored shadowed data. You can define the number of days that should pass before shadowed data can be automatically deleted from the local storage. You can define a disk quota for the shadowed data. Specify the maximum percentage of free disk space that can be used by shadowed data in local storage quota parameter. Enable this parameter to allow shadowing of files of zero size. By enabling this parameter, you can prevent users from writing data when shadowing is not possible. Using this parameter, you can define what log should be used to store audit records. There are three options to choose. Event log, only the standard local Windows event log is used to store audit records. DeviceLock log, only the protected proprietary log is used to store audit records. The data from this log is sent to DeviceLock Enterprise Server and is stored centrally in the database. Events and DeviceLock logs. Both logs are used to store audit records. Audit log settings. Use it to specify the maximum size of the audit log and overwrite options. Use this parameter to enable or disable the moving of all shadow data to DeviceLock Enterprise Server. Enable this parameter to turn on audit logging of events associated with operations on folders, such as creating, renaming, reading, and deleting. When this parameter is disabled, all events associated with folder operations will be excluded from auditing. Enable this parameter to prevent users' original file deletion following write-denied file activities with the same file name. While the changes are not kept due to the content violation, the original file remains in the folder. An audit log event is recorded when the original file is restored. Alerts configuration parameters can be found in a separate branch. Decide how you want to be notified when alert conditions occur, through SNMP traps or email, and configure the chosen option. Configure alert delivery failure parameters, such as the delivery retry count, delivery retry interval, and the amount of time an undelivered notification is kept in the queue for delivery. Enable notifications for specific events, specifying the conditions in Administrative Alerts section. Auditing, shadowing, and alerts, like permissions, are configured independently for devices and protocols. To set an auditing, shadowing, or an alert rule for an interface, device type, or a protocol, go to the appropriate Auditing, Shadowing, and Alerts dialog box. There are two types of user access that can be logged to the audit log. Allowed, all access attempts that were permitted by DeviceLock service. Denied, all access attempts that were blocked by DeviceLock service. Start configuring the rule by adding a user or a group the rule is to be applied to. To add a new user or a user group to the list of accounts, click Add. Using special time control, you can define time periods when rules will or will not be active. To define which user's actions are to be logged to either audit or shadow log, set appropriate audit rights. All rights are divided into two groups, audit and shadowing. Each group has its own set of rights. Audit. Flags that belong to this group are responsible for actions logged into audit log. Read. To log read access attempts. Write. To log write access attempts. Print. To log all attempts to send documents to printers. Execute. To log access attempts to remotely execute a code on device's side. Read non-files. To log read access attempts for non-file objects. Write non-files. To log write access attempts for non-file objects. Copy. To log all attempts to paste data from the clipboard and capture screenshots. Mapped drives read. To log all attempts to read data from mapped drives during a terminal session. Mapped drives write. To log all attempts to write data to mapped drives during a terminal session. Serial port access. To log all attempts to access serial ports during a terminal session. USB devices access. To log all attempts to access USB devices during a terminal session. Clipboard incoming. To log all attempts to paste clipboard data to a terminal session or a virtual machine. Clipboard outgoing. To log all attempts to paste clipboard data from a terminal session or a virtual machine. Shadowing. Flags that belong to this group are responsible for actions logged into shadow log. Write. To enable shadowing of all data written by a user. Print. To enable shadowing of all documents sent to printers. Write non-files. To enable shadowing of all non-file objects written by a user. Copy. To enable shadowing of pasted clipboard data and captured screenshots. Clipboard outgoing. To enable shadowing of clipboard data pasted from a terminal session or virtual machine. Clipboard incoming. To enable shadowing of clipboard data pasted to a terminal session or a virtual machine. Alerts are sent when a specific user attempts to access a specific device or transfer data using a protocol. Select the Alert Allowed checkbox to enable notification of successful attempts to access a device or a protocol. Or select Alert Denied checkbox to be notified of failed attempts. Create a rule. Here are the rules for protocols, configured in the same way with a wide variety of audit and shadowing rights. To set auditing, shadowing, and alert rules with DeviceLock Enterprise Manager Console, use Set Service Settings plugin. Before you can use the plugin, you should define settings, permissions, and audit rules that you want to deploy. You can do this by pressing Settings below the Plugins list in Scan Network dialog. First of all, you have to prepare the policy to deploy. If there are no files in the list, then you can either create an empty file by pressing New or add an existing file by pressing Add. Then, highlight the file in the list and press Edit to open DeviceLock Service Settings Editor. DeviceLock Service Settings Editor is used for creating and modifying external XML files with settings, permissions, audit, and shadowing rules for DeviceLock Service. There is no difference in setting rules between DeviceLock Enterprise Manager and DeviceLock Management Console. When finished modifying the policy, select its file by enabling the checkmark near the file's name in the list. Then press OK to close the configuration dialog. DeviceLock Group Policy Manager has the same unified interface to set auditing, shadowing, and alert rules. In other words, it works just the same way here. There is a built-in shadow log viewer that allows you to retrieve the shadow log from DeviceLock service. A typical DeviceLock configuration assumes that the shadow data is stored on DeviceLock Enterprise server. In this case, all shadow data which is originally logged and cached by DeviceLock service on a local computer is periodically moved to the server. The local shadow log is cleared as soon as the data is successfully moved. So to view this data, you should use the Enterprise Server Shadow Log Viewer. However, in some cases, you may need to view the shadow log of a certain computer. Right-click a log entry to view the list of possible actions to be taken. To open the file from a selected record with its associated application, use Open. If you need to save data from a selected record to your local computer, use Save. When you select a record that contains the data originally written as an additional session to a multi-session optical disk, Save as Raw Data option is available. To delete a record, select Delete. To open the data in the built-in viewer, use View. External Viewer. Using this option, you can define an external application to view the shadow data. To refresh the list, select Refresh. You can filter data in Shadow Log Viewer using this context menu item. When DeviceLock Enterprise Server is defined in Service Options and you need to force moving shadow data from the current computer to a server, use Send Data to Server. DeviceLock Enterprise Server Shadow Log Viewer allows you to retrieve the shadow log stored on DeviceLock Enterprise Server. There is not much difference between the service's Shadow Log Viewer and that of the server. In comparison with the first, the last has only 2 additional columns. Computer, the name of the computer from which shadow logs were received, and Received Date Time, the date and time when a record was received by DeviceLock Enterprise Server. Deleted Shadow Data Log allows you to retrieve information about deleted shadow log records. When a record is removed from the Login Shadow Log Viewer, the record's binary data is deleted, but all other information, such as file name and size, username, date, time, and so on, is moved to this log. Being a plugin-based console, DeviceLock Enterprise Manager operates with Shadow Log Viewer, its service part, through a special Shadow Log Viewer plugin and retrieves the shadow log from DeviceLock service. Use the context menu available by a right mouse click to access all of this plugin's functions. The specificity of group policy mechanisms does not allow to retrieve any audit or shadow logs using DeviceLock Group Policy Manager console. This functionality of DeviceLock Enterprise Server allows you to implement real-time monitoring of DeviceLock services across the network. The detailed information is written to the special log and can be viewed using the Monitoring Log Viewer. All actions, computer monitoring, policy consistency, and integrity checking, etc., are performed by tasks. During their execution, tasks write status information to the monitoring log, including data about monitored computers and DeviceLock services. They'll also write possible errors which occurred during the scanning of computers and connecting to DeviceLock services. Also, tasks display the status of monitored computers and other useful information at the management console. This allows you to keep an eye on monitored computers in real time. To view the monitored computers that belong to the task, highlight this task. To refresh the information displayed in the computers list, select Refresh. The columns on the right are the name of the monitored computer, the status of the monitored computer and DeviceLock service. The status also affects an icon displayed next to the computer name parameter. The general rules for interpreting computer icons are: green computer means that the computer is working and DeviceLock service is running on it. Red computer means that the computer is not working, not found, or it is working but without DeviceLock service. Computer with an exclamation mark means that something is wrong with the computer or DeviceLock service. There can be different statuses based on these three. For more information, please see DeviceLock User Manual. The date and time of the last scan attempt. This scan attempt can be either successful or not. Service uptime shows how long DeviceLock service has been working on the monitored computer. Computer uptime shows how long the monitored computer has been working. By comparing the computer's uptime with the service's uptime, you can always see whether or not DeviceLock service was stopped during the current computer session. Service version, the version of DeviceLock service. Last 5 digits indicate the build number. To create a new task, use Create Task from the context menu of the monitoring item. To edit an existing task, select this task in the left tree and use Edit Task from the context menu. If you wish to delete the task permanently, select this task and use Delete Task from the context menu. There are the following parameters in the Edit Task menu. The name of the task used to identify this task in the tasks list and in the monitoring log. If checked, allows DeviceLock Enterprise Server to execute this task. Uncheck this flag if you wish to disable the task but don't want to delete it permanently. The type of the computers list used to define what computers will be monitored by this task. Press the Edit button to configure the list selected in Computers. 2 computer list types are supported. Static list. All of the computers are specified in the list by their names or IP addresses. Computers that will be monitored should be specified in the right list. You have to select needed computers in the left list and then move them to the right list by pressing this button. If you need to exclude some computers from the monitoring process, select them in the right list and then press this button. By using these buttons, you can add and remove all available computers at the same time. There are several flexible ways to choose network computers from the left list. Computers. You browse the network tree and select Computers. From File, you load a predefined list of computers from the external text file and then select the computers. Manual. You type computer names manually to select the computers. Each computer's name or IP address must be typed on a separate line. Dynamic list. Instead of computer names or IP addresses, the dynamic list contains a path to the container in the directory service tree. A path to the container from which computers will be retrieved at the time of executing the task should be specified in the path parameter. You may browse the directory tree and choose the needed container by pressing the Select button. In this case, a path to the container will be specified in the path parameter automatically. Check the Traverse Subcontainers when enumerating computers flag to allow DeviceLock Enterprise Server to retrieve computers from all the nested containers located inside the selected container. There are 2 modes to work with the directory service. Active Directory. You browse the Active Directory tree and select the needed container. If you need to supply alternative credentials to access Active Directory, press the Browse button to open the Credentials dialog and specify the needed user account and its corresponding password. Check the Synchronization flag to allow DeviceLock Enterprise Server to use the internal synchronization mechanisms provided by Active Directory. LDAP. You browse the LDAP tree and select the needed container. To configure a connection to the LDAP server, press the Browse button and open the LDAP settings dialog where Host, the name or the IP address of the LDAP server to connect to. Port, the TCP port on which the LDAP server accepts connections. The default port is 389. Base DN, the starting point for you to browse the directory tree. Leave the base DN field blank to start browsing from the root. By pressing the Fetch button, you can get all the published naming contexts. User DN, the distinguished name DN of the directory user that allows connections to the directory. Password, the user's password. Network discovery methods, types of network scanning that will be used to determine the status, available or unavailable, of monitored computers. 3 types of the network scan are supported: ping sweep, net BIOS queries, TCP discovery ports. To define additional parameters for discovery methods, press the Advanced Settings button and open the Network Discovery Settings dialog, consisting of number of retries parameter, the number of times that DeviceLock Enterprise Server will perform each type of scan when it returns the unavailable status. 0 means that no retries will be performed for that scan type after the first failed attempt. Reply timeout parameter. The time in seconds DeviceLock Enterprise Server will actually wait for a response from the target computer for each type of scan. If DeviceLock Enterprise Server is running on a slow or busy network, you may need to increase this timeout. DeviceLock service can be configured to use either a fixed port or dynamic ports during the installation process. Verify service settings. Check this flag if you want to verify policy integrity for DeviceLock services running on monitored computers. Service settings file. To assign the master policy to the task, you should load the XML file with service settings, the master policy file. To load the master policy file, press the Browse button. If you are modifying the task and the master policy is already assigned, you can export it to an external XML file by pressing the Save button. Restore service settings. If checked, DeviceLock Enterprise Server will overwrite the current policy of a monitored DeviceLock service, for which the policy verification process failed with the master policy assigned to this task. Scanning interval. The time in seconds that should pass after a task completes and before DeviceLock Enterprise Server will start executing the same task again. Number of scanning threads. The maximum number of threads that can be used by this task simultaneously. This viewer allows you to retrieve the monitoring log. The monitoring log is used by tasks to write information about monitored computers and DeviceLock services. The columns of this viewer are defined as follows. Type: the class of an event, success, information, warning, or error. Date time: the date and the time when an event has occurred. Event: a number identifying the particular event type. Task name: the name of the task responsible for this event. Can be empty if an event doesn't link to any task. Computer name: the name of the computer belonging to the task that is responsible for this event. Can be empty if an event doesn't link to the computer. Information: event-specific information such as status, error, warning, and so on. Server: the name of the server where an event occurred. Record N: the record number. To refresh the list, select Refresh from the context menu. To clear all records from this log, select Clear from the context menu, or press the appropriate button on the toolbar. Monitoring log settings. To define a maximum log size and instruct DeviceLock Enterprise Server in the event the monitoring log becomes full, use Settings from the context menu of the monitoring log viewer. You can filter data in the monitoring log viewer so that only records that meet specified conditions are displayed in the list. To open the Filter dialog, use Filter from the context menu of the monitoring log viewer, or press the appropriate button on the toolbar. DeviceLock lets you create reports using data from logs stored on DeviceLock Enterprise Server. Use reports to arrange and display statistical data on a user's device-related and protocol-related activities in a separate file. When generating a report, you can define report parameters to filter the data and display the information that is relevant to you. Reports can be created, automatically sent to you via email, stored, exported to a variety of formats, and shared with others. Reports are created using DeviceLock Management Console. DeviceLock comes with a set of predefined report templates that you can use to create new reports. These predefined templates are displayed in the console tree. There are two categories of report templates: Autolog reports that use the DeviceLock Enterprise Server audit log files as a data source, and Shadow log reports that use the DeviceLock Enterprise Server shadow log files as a data source. DeviceLock allows you to distribute reports through email. Before you can use email delivery of reports, you must specify which SMTP server will be used to send the email messages, and which email addresses will be used as the sender address. To configure email delivery of reports, select Notification Settings. Then the Mail Server Parameters dialog box appears. Configure the parameters. Click OK. Use the Set Default Format option to select between output formats. To run a report, under Audit Log or Shadow Log, right-click any report template you want to use, and then click New Report. In the Report Options dialog box, accept or change the default settings, and then click OK. When you select a report template in the console tree, in the Details pane, you can view report execution information regarding all reports based on the selected template. Refreshing reports takes place because current reports and the current status of reports are not updated automatically. So you need to perform a refresh operation. To refresh reports, expand Audit Log or Shadow Log. Under Audit Log or Shadow Log, right-click any report template and then click Refresh. When you select a report template in the console tree, you can view the reports associated with it in the Details pane. After a report is successfully completed, you can open it in DeviceLock Management Console. To view a report, in the Details pane, right-click the report you want to view, and then click Open. After you run a report, you can get information on the report parameters that you specified when generating the report. To view report parameters, enter View Parameters. The Report Options dialog displays the parameter values that you specified when generating the report. DeviceLock provides the ability to export generated reports to another format and save them as files locally or on your network. To export and save reports, select Save As from the context menu of the report or reports. Browse to the location where you want to save the report. Click Save. To send reports through email, in the dialog box, type the email addresses of the recipients. Click OK. To delete reports when they are no longer required, right-click the selection and then click Delete. Use the DeviceLock Content Security Server node in DeviceLock Management Console to configure and use the server. There are two types of configuration settings for DeviceLock Content Security Server. General settings that affect your whole DeviceLock Content Security Server deployment. Full text search settings for search server that are related to full text search and affect only the search server component of the server. You can configure general server settings during the initial installation of DeviceLock Content Security Server, or you can use DeviceLock Management Console to configure and modify them after the server has been installed and is functioning. With DeviceLock Management Console, you can perform the following configuration tasks. Configure which users have access to DeviceLock Content Security Server. Change the startup account information for the server service. Install or remove DeviceLock certificate used to authenticate communications between DeviceLock Content Security Server and DeviceLock Enterprise Server. Change the TCP port that DeviceLock Content Security Server uses to connect to DeviceLock Management Console. Full text search settings are related to full text search and apply only to the search server component of DeviceLock Content Security Server. To install search server licenses, use the Search Server Licenses menu item. In this dialog box, click Load Licenses to browse for the license file. In the Look-in list, click the location that contains the license file. Click the file and then click Open. To specify DeviceLock Enterprise servers whose data will be indexed for full text search, use DeviceLock Enterprise Servers menu item. Type the IP address or the name of the computer that is running DeviceLock Enterprise Server. Click OK. To specify the location of the full text index, use Index Directory menu item. Type the path that you want to use as your default index location. Click OK. To allow or disallow the index to include textual information from binary data, enable or disable Extract Text from Binary menu item. To configure the full-text indexing schedule, use Indexing Interval menu item. Type or select the number of minutes for the indexing interval. Click OK. To specify the time interval to perform merge operations, use Merge Interval item. To immediately rebuild the full-text index, right-click Search Server and then click Create New Index. To immediately update the existing index, right-click Search Server and then click Index Now. Search Server provides full-text searching of log data stored on DeviceLock Enterprise Server. You can use full-text searches to find data that you cannot find by filtering data in the log viewers. The full-text search functionality is especially useful in situations when you need to search for shadow copies of documents based on their contents. DeviceLock Search Server can automatically recognize, index, search, and display documents in various formats, such as PDF, MS Excel, MS Word, OpenOffice, WordPerfect, and many others. You can control the indexing and merge process on each specified DeviceLock Enterprise server by watching its status and progress counter. The status indicator shows the status of the operation. To monitor and refresh the status of the current indexing activity, under Search Server, select Current Activity. The status of the current indexing and merging related operations is not updated automatically, so you need to perform a refresh operation. To perform a search operation, under Search Server, select Search Page. In the search box, type the word or phrase you want to find. You can set various search options by clicking Options. To filter search results by date, specify a date range that limits the data retrieved from the data sources. To do so, set the following date parameters. From specifies the beginning of the date range in which to search. First record causes Search Server to retrieve data starting with the first record written to the log. Records on causes Search Server to retrieve data that was written starting with a specific date. 2. Specifies the end of the date range in which to search. Last record causes Search Server to retrieve data ending with the last record written to the log. Records on causes Search Server to retrieve data that was written ending with a specific date. If you set the date parameters to Records on, click in the From and To boxes to display the calendar. In the calendar, select the day. You can use single arrows to change the month and double arrows to change the year you view. Click Search. After you enter search criteria and submit your search, Search Server returns the search results page, which looks like this. The search results page is divided into the following viewing areas. Search Query displays the search criteria you entered. Click Options to view additional search criteria you specified. Statistics bar shows the number of results displayed on the current search results page. Search Results displays a numbered list of items containing information that match the search criteria you entered. Results Navigator shows how many results pages are returned and allows you to navigate from page to page. A search result includes the following: snippets, portions of text containing highlighted query words. These snippets allow you to see the context in which the query words were found. Log parameters, summary information retrieved from the log for this search result. Click the plus sign to expand log parameters and view this information. To open a shadow copy of a file in its native application, on the search results page, click Open under the desired search result. To save a shadow copy of a file to any local or network location, on the search results page, click Save under the desired search result. To open and save a shadow copy of a file using the built-in viewer, click View under the desired search result. In the built-in viewer, click any of the following viewing options. Hex displays data in hex as well as in words. Text displays data in textual format only. To save the file, click Save. Click Close to close the viewer. DeviceLock supports Resultant set of policy, so you can use the standard Windows snap-in to view the DeviceLock policy currently being applied, as well as to predict what policy would be applied to a selected computer. To use RSOP, you should start Microsoft Management Console and add the resultant set of policy snap-in manually. Run Microsoft Management Console from the command line or use the Run menu item to execute this command. Open the File menu and then click Add Remove Snap-in. Select Resultant Set of Policy from the list, then click Add. Click OK to add the snap-in. In the console tree, select Resultant Set of Policy. Click Generate RSOP Data in the context menu available by a right mouse click. Go through the Resultant Set of Policy wizard to obtain RSOP information from the selected computer. Expand the computer configuration container and then select DeviceLock. These parameters allow you to tune up DeviceLock's ability to detect hardware keyloggers and to define what DeviceLock service should do when a keylogger is found. Use DeviceLock Management Consoles to set them up. Use the context menu available via a right mouse click on every parameter. Block keyboard. Enable this parameter to block a keyboard connected to a hardware USB keylogger when it's detected. Log event. You can instruct DeviceLock service to write an event to the audit log when a hardware USB keylogger is detected. Treat any USB hub as keylogger. By enabling this parameter, you can instruct DeviceLock service to treat any external USB hub a keyboard is connected to as a hardware keylogger. Notify user. You can define a custom message to be displayed to users when DeviceLock service detects hardware USB keyloggers. PS2 keyboard scrambling. By enabling this parameter, you can prevent PS2 keyloggers from recording keystrokes. You can define a custom message to be displayed to users when an attempt made to plug in a USB or FireWire device is denied. You can also define a custom message to be displayed to users when the allowed period for temporary whitelisted devices is expired and devices have been removed from temporary whitelist. You can define a content-aware blocked read message to be displayed to users when they try to read a file to which they are denied access. You can define a content-aware blocked write message to be displayed to users when they try to write a file to which they are denied access. You can define a protocol's blocked message to be displayed to users when they try to access a protocol they are denied access to. Checking the content of files copied to devices or transmitted over the network can be a time-consuming operation. You can define a content verification message to be displayed to users when content inspection is in progress. DeviceLock Administrators is the functionality blocking local administrators of client computers from having access to DeviceLock service and other related components. To turn on DeviceLock security, use the DeviceLock Administrators parameter, allowing you to define the list of user accounts with administrative access rights to DeviceLock service. Uncheck the Enable Default Security flag. Then, you need to specify authorized accounts that can administer DeviceLock service. To add a new user or user group to the list of accounts, click Add. To delete a record from the list of accounts, use Delete. To define which DeviceLock administrative actions are to be allowed for a user or user group, set the appropriate rights. Full Control to enable full access to DeviceLock service. Change to enable change access to DeviceLock service. Read Only to enable only the reading of permissions, auditing, and other parameters. By selecting the Enable Unhook Protection checkbox, you can turn on optional protection against anti-rootkit techniques that could be used to intentionally disable DeviceLock service. When this protection is turned on, the DeviceLock driver controls the integrity of its code. If a violation is found, DeviceLock causes Windows to stop with a fatal error. Select the Prevent Changes in System Configuration Files checkbox to instruct DeviceLock service to automatically secure the Windows hosts file. By clearing or selecting the Use Strong Integrity Check checkbox, you can instruct DeviceLock service either to check version information or to verify the digital signature of all its executable files. Server Administrator's functionality blocks unauthorized access to DeviceLock Enterprise and Content Security Server's services. You can find it in the options of a server. Configure the administrators list the same way you configure the list of DeviceLock administrators. DeviceLock Certificate Generation tool allows you to generate DeviceLock certificates. There are two simple steps to generate the key pair. 1. Define the name of the DeviceLock certificate. The certificate generation tool auto-generates a name based on the current date and time, but you can type any other name. 2. Define the path and file names for private and public keys. As soon as DeviceLock certificate is generated, you can start deploying public key to users' computers. DeviceLock Service Settings Editor is used for creating and modifying external XML files with settings, permissions, audit, and shadowing rules for DeviceLock service. To create a new policy from scratch, just run DeviceLock Service Settings Editor and start making changes in its default policy. If you want to modify an existing policy, you should load the XML file with that policy to DeviceLock Service Settings Editor using the Load Service Settings context menu item and then make desired changes. In any case, to save the changes you made, you should use Save Service Settings from the context menu. Alternatively, you can use Save and Sign Service Settings from the context menu to save the policy to an external XML file and automatically sign it with the most recent DeviceLock certificate, the private key. Later files with policies created using DeviceLock Service Settings Editor can be loaded via DeviceLock Management Console and/or DeviceLock Group Policy Manager. This tool is used to grant users temporary access to requested devices and sign XML files containing DeviceLock service settings exported from DeviceLock Management Console or DeviceLock Group Policy Manager. First of all, you should load the corresponding DeviceLock certificate, the private key. DeviceLock Signing Tool must use the private key that belongs to the same certificate as the public key installed on the user's computer. Then, decide what action you want to perform. Generate an unlock code or sign an XML file containing DeviceLock service settings. There are 6 simple steps to sign an XML file. Load the corresponding DeviceLock certificate. Load the file with DeviceLock service settings you need to sign. In the Signed File field, specify the resultant file. Decide whether the resultant file should contain expiration information or not. Use Valid Until flag. Decide whether the resultant file can be used only on specific computers or not. If you want to allow users to import settings from this file on any computers, disable the Only for Computers flag. You can also load a predefined list of computers from an external text file. To open an external file, press the Browse button. This text file must contain each computer's name on separate lines. Press the Sign button to create a signed file with DeviceLock service settings. Provide this file to the user in any suitable way. When the user wants to apply DeviceLock service settings from this signed file, he should run DeviceLock Applet from Control Panel and select the Import Service Settings option. There are 2 simple steps for the user to import DeviceLock service settings from the signed file. In the Signed File field, specify the full path to this signed file. Press the Finish button. If the digital signature in the file is valid, then the new settings will be applied to DeviceLock service immediately. DeviceLock Web Console provides a simple and intuitive web interface for DeviceLock Management Console and DeviceLock Service Settings Editor. Once you've installed DeviceLock Web Console, you can access it from your web browser by entering your console host and port number. When prompted, log into DeviceLock Web Console using the administrator user ID and password. The interface provides every option of DeviceLock Management Console or Service Settings Editor, despite the difference. There are 4 DeviceLock license file types distinguished: Base, Network Lock, Content Lock, and Search Server. The last 3 are the add-ons to the mandatory DeviceLock Base DeviceLock.lic license. That means these components cannot be used individually without DeviceLock Base license. DeviceLock Base license file is to be activated on the computers with DeviceLock consoles or DeviceLock Enterprise Server installed, i.e. on those used to configure permissions for computers controlled by DeviceLock Agent or to collect data from them. To install and activate the license file, place it into DeviceLock Installation Directory. Then run any of DeviceLock consoles to activate. To license your instance of DeviceLock Enterprise Server, load DeviceLock Base license file into DeviceLock Enterprise Server using DeviceLock Management Console. Activation routine of the Network Lock or Content Lock license files is the same. Place a license into DeviceLock Installation Directory and run any of DeviceLock consoles. To license your instance of DeviceLock Search Server, load DeviceLock Search Server license using DeviceLock Management Console.